My family said I'd be nothing without them. 5 years later they worked under my name. I can still taste the bitterness of that Thanksgiving dinner in 2018 when everything finally came to a head. The dining room of our family home in suburban Detroit felt smaller than usual, crowded with expectations and disappointments that had been building for years. My father sat at the head of the table, carving the turkey with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else in life, while my mother bustled around serving sides and making sure everyone's glass stayed full. My older brother Marcus was there with his wife Jennifer, both of them lawyers at prestigious firms downtown. My sister Rebecca had driven up from Chicago, where she worked as a marketing executive for a Fortune 500 company. And then there was me, 25 years old, college dropout, bouncing between odd jobs and what my family liked to call pipe dreams. The conversation had started innocently enough, as these things always do. Marcus was talking about his latest case, some corporate merger worth millions, when Dad turned his attention to me with that look I'd grown to dread, part concern, part frustration, entirely condescending. "So Jake," he said, setting down his carving knife with deliberate care, "your mother tells me you're still working at that warehouse." I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "It's temporary. I'm saving money for my business idea." The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Rebecca actually snorted into her wine glass, while Marcus shook his head with the kind of disappointed expression he probably practiced for difficult clients. "Business idea," Dad repeated, like the words tasted sour in his mouth. "Son, you've had a dozen business ideas in the past 3 years. The food truck, the app development, that ridiculous cryptocurrency thing. When are you going to get serious about your future?" My mother reached across the table and patted my hand in that way that was supposed to be comforting but felt patronizing. "Honey, we're just worried about you. Your brother and sister have established careers, good salaries, benefits. You're 25 and you're still searching. Searching. As if wanting something more than the predetermined path they'd laid out for me was some kind of character flaw. "This time is different," I said, pulling my hand back. "I've been researching the market for months. Digital marketing is exploding, especially for small businesses. I know I can build something real." Marcus leaned forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "With what capital? What experience? You dropped out of college junior year, Jake. You don't have any formal business training, no network, no track record of success." "I don't need a degree to understand what businesses need," I shot back, feeling the familiar heat of frustration rising in my chest. "I've been working with small companies on the side, helping them with social media, basic web design. I'm good at this." "You're good at a lot of things when you're doing them as hobbies," Rebecca interjected, her tone sharp with the kind of pragmatism that had made her successful in corporate America. "But running a real business? That's not about being good at something, Jake. It's about discipline, consistency, planning. Things you've never shown much aptitude for." The words hit harder than I expected, maybe because there was just enough truth in them to sting. I had jumped from idea to idea, project to project, never quite seeing anything through to completion. But this felt different. This felt like the thing I'd been building toward my entire life. "I know what I'm doing," I said, but even I could hear how defensive I sounded. Dad put down his fork and looked at me with the expression he'd worn when I told him I was dropping out of college. Disappointment mixed with resignation, as if he'd finally given up hope that I'd ever amount to anything. "Jake," he said slowly, "we love you, but you need to face reality. You're not built for entrepreneurship. You don't have the drive, the focus, or frankly, the intelligence that it takes to build something from nothing. Your brother graduated top of his class from law school. Your sister has an MBA from Northwestern. You couldn't even finish your bachelor's degree." The dining room went completely quiet except for the ticking of my grandmother's old clock on the mantel. I could feel everyone watching me, waiting to see how I'd respond to having my dreams dissected and dismissed so casually. "Maybe it's time to consider working for one of us," Marcus offered, his tone gentler now, like he was throwing me a lifeline. "I could probably get you a paralegal position at my firm. Nothing glamorous, but it's steady work with room for growth if you apply yourself. Or there might be something in my company's mailroom," Rebecca added. "It's not much, but it's a foot in the door at a real corporation. You could work your way up over time. Work my way up. In someone else's company. Following someone else's vision. Becoming the kind of person who spent 40 years climbing a ladder someone else had built, grateful for each small promotion and cost of living raise." I looked around the table at the faces of the people who were supposed to believe in me most, and saw only pity and low expectations. They genuinely thought they were helping me by offering to solve my problems with connections and entry-level positions. They couldn't conceive of a world where I might actually succeed on my own terms. "What if I don't want to work for someone else?" I asked quietly. Dad's laugh was harsh, without any real humor. "Son, everybody works for someone else. Even business owners answer to investors, customers, the market. The sooner you learn that, the sooner you can start building a real life. You're being naive, Jake, my mother added, her voice taking on the tone she'd used when I was a child and had done something particularly foolish. Success isn't about following your passion or chasing dreams. It's about making smart, practical choices and sticking with them. We're not trying to hurt your feelings, Rebecca said, but her voice carried that corporate efficiency that brooked no argument. We're trying to save you from wasting the next 10 years of your life on something that's never going to work out. You don't have what it takes to run a business, and there's no shame in admitting that. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning for years. You don't have what it takes. It wasn't the first time I'd heard some variation of that sentiment from my family, but it was the first time they'd said it so directly. So finally, I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor with a sound that seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet room. You know what? I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. You're right. I don't have what you have. I don't have a law degree or an MBA or a corner office or a 5-year plan approved by everyone at the family dinner table. But what I do have is something none of you seem to understand. I paused, looking at each of them in turn. My father with his disappointed frown, my mother with her worried expression, Marcus with his lawyer's skepticism, Rebecca with her corporate certainty. I have the courage to fail, I continued. And more importantly, I have the belief that I don't have to settle for someone else's definition of success. So thank you for the job offers, but I'll pass. I'd rather fail trying to build something of my own than succeed following a path you've chosen for me. I walked out of that dining room and out of that house, knowing that something fundamental had shifted in my relationship with my family. They'd drawn a line in the sand and I'd chosen to step across it. The months that followed that Thanksgiving dinner were the loneliest and most challenging of my life. I moved out of my parents' house the week after our confrontation, using the small amount of savings I'd accumulated from my warehouse job to rent a studio apartment in one of Detroit's rougher neighborhoods. The place was barely 400 square feet with thin walls, unreliable heating, and a view of a parking lot filled with broken glass and abandoned shopping carts. But it was mine, and that mattered more than I could have imagined. I kept my warehouse job during the day, loading trucks, moving inventory, earning just enough to cover rent and groceries, while spending every evening and weekend building my digital marketing business. My office was a folding table I'd bought at a thrift store, positioned next to the only window in my apartment. My equipment consisted of a 5-year-old laptop I'd bought used and a phone with an unlimited data plan that cost more than I could really afford. The first few months were brutal. I reached out to dozens of small businesses, offering to help them improve their online presence. Most didn't return my calls or emails. The ones who did were skeptical. A 25-year-old with no formal credentials operating out of a studio apartment didn't exactly inspire confidence in business owners who'd been struggling to make ends meet themselves. My family's silence was deafening. In the past, even when we disagreed, there had been phone calls, text messages, invitations to family gatherings. Now there was nothing. It was as if I'd ceased to exist the moment I'd walked out of that dining room. The isolation was harder than the financial struggle, harder than the long hours and constant rejection. But slowly, painfully, things started to change. My first real client was Maria Santos, who owned a small bakery in southwest Detroit. She'd been trying to compete with chain stores and struggling to reach customers beyond her immediate neighborhood. I spent 3 weeks studying her business, her competitors, and her potential market before proposing a comprehensive digital strategy that would cost her less than $1,000 to implement. We created social media profiles that showcased her beautiful pastries and connected with the local community. I helped her set up a basic website with online ordering capabilities and taught her how to use email marketing to keep customers engaged. Most importantly, I showed her how to track results so she could see which efforts were actually driving sales. Within 2 months, Maria's weekend sales had increased by 40%. She was getting orders from customers across the metro area, and food bloggers were starting to notice her work. More importantly, she was thrilled with the results and eager to expand our efforts. "You've changed my whole business," she told me one morning when I stopped by to pick up pastries for a client meeting. "For the first time in years, I feel like I have control over my future instead of just hoping customers will walk through the door." Maria became my first success story, but more than that, she became my proof of concept. If I could help a small bakery in a tough neighborhood increase their sales by 40%, I could help other businesses too. She referred me to 2 other local business owners, and they referred me to others. By spring of 2019, I had 8 regular clients and was making enough money to quit my warehouse job. It wasn't a fortune. I was still living in the same studio apartment, still buying groceries at discount stores and repairing my laptop with YouTube tutorials. But I was building something real, something that mattered to the people I worked with. The work itself was addictive. Each business was a puzzle to solve, a unique combination of challenges and opportunities that required creativity, research, and persistence. I learned about industries I'd never considered: auto repair shops, hair salons, fitness studios, accounting firms. Each client taught me something new about business, about marketing, about what it really took to succeed as an entrepreneur. I started documenting my successes on social media, sharing before and after case studies and practical tips for small business owners. The content began to gain traction, attracting attention from business owners across Michigan and eventually beyond. People started reaching out from other states asking if I could help their businesses too. That's when I realized I needed to scale beyond one-on-one client work. I developed a system for analyzing businesses quickly, identifying their most urgent marketing needs, and implementing solutions efficiently. I created templates, workflows, and training materials that allowed me to take on more clients without sacrificing quality. By the end of 2019, I was working with 35 businesses across 6 states. I'd hired my first employee, Sarah, a recent marketing graduate who was brilliant with data analysis and client communication. We'd outgrown my studio apartment and moved into a small office space in downtown Detroit. Nothing fancy but professional enough to meet clients. The financial transformation was dramatic. I went from making $30,000 a year at the warehouse to generating over 6 figures in revenue. More importantly, I was building a reputation in the digital marketing space. Business publications started featuring my work. I was invited to speak at small business conferences and networking events. But the personal transformation was even more significant. I discovered that I had capabilities I'd never recognized, not just for marketing and business development, but for leadership, problem-solving, and inspiring confidence in others. The self-doubt that had plagued me for years began to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence built on real accomplishments and measurable results. I thought about reaching out to my family during this period, sharing my successes and maybe even proving them wrong. But something held me back. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the knowledge that their acceptance now would feel hollow after their rejection when I'd needed their support most. Instead, I focused on building. By early 2020, despite the challenges of the pandemic, my business was thriving. Companies that had been resistant to digital marketing suddenly realized they needed online strategies to survive. My client base doubled, then tripled. I hired 4 more employees and moved to a larger office space. The irony wasn't lost on me that a global crisis had accelerated my success. While many businesses struggled, mine grew because I'd positioned myself in exactly the right place at the right time. I'd spent 2 years learning how to help businesses succeed online, and suddenly every business needed that expertise to survive. By the end of 2020, I was running a team of 12 people and working with over 200 businesses across the country. We'd developed proprietary software to streamline our processes and were generating revenue that would have seemed impossible just 3 years earlier. I was no longer the failed college dropout working in a warehouse. I was the founder and CEO of a rapidly growing company that was making a real difference in the lives of small business owners across America. And I'd built it all without a single phone call, email, or word of encouragement from the family who'd once told me I'd never amount to anything. By 2021, what had started as a desperate attempt to prove my family wrong had evolved into something I'd never anticipated: a genuine business empire. Digital Solutions Group, the company I'd named during one of those late nights in my studio apartment, now occupied an entire floor of a downtown Detroit high-rise. The view from my office window stretched across the Detroit River to Windsor, Canada, a daily reminder of how far I'd traveled from that cramped studio with its view of broken glass. The growth had been exponential and, at times, overwhelming. We weren't just helping small businesses anymore. We were working with mid-sized companies, nonprofits, and even a few Fortune 500 subsidiaries that needed specialized digital marketing expertise. Our client retention rate was over 90%. And we had a waiting list of businesses wanting to work with us. I'd hired Amanda Richardson as my chief operating officer, a former McKinsey consultant who'd left the corporate world to help build something more meaningful. Under her guidance, we developed systems and processes that allowed us to scale efficiently while maintaining the personalized service that had built our reputation. We now employed 43 people across 3 departments: strategy, implementation, and client success. The financial numbers were staggering even to me. We were on track to generate over $8 million in revenue that year, with profit margins that made my accountant smile every time we met. I'd moved from that studio apartment to a renovated loft in Detroit's Corktown neighborhood, then to a house in Birmingham, one of the city's most exclusive suburbs. But success brought its own complications. The bigger we grew, the more complex the business became. I was no longer the guy personally managing every client relationship and troubleshooting technical problems at midnight. Instead, I found myself in meetings about quarterly projections, human resources policies, and expansion strategies. I was learning to be a CEO, not just a service provider. It was during this period of rapid growth that I made a decision that would ultimately reshape my relationship with my family. I decided to expand into legal and financial services marketing. The legal industry was notoriously behind when it came to digital marketing. Most law firms relied on referrals, traditional advertising, and outdated websites that did nothing to attract new clients. I saw an enormous opportunity to help lawyers build stronger online presences and connect with clients who were increasingly searching for legal services online. We developed specialized strategies for different types of legal practices: personal injury, family law, criminal defense, corporate law. The approach required deep research into legal ethics rules, compliance requirements, and the unique challenges lawyers faced when marketing their services. But the results were remarkable. Lawyers who implemented our strategies saw 30 to 50% increases in qualified leads within 6 months. Word spread quickly through the legal community. Bar associations started inviting me to speak at conferences. Legal publications featured our case studies. And law firms from across the country began reaching out for our services. That's when Marcus first contacted me. 3 years had passed since that Thanksgiving dinner confrontation. 3 years without a single word from any member of my family, despite the growing media attention my company was receiving. Local business journals had featured my story, calling me one of Detroit's rising young entrepreneurs. I'd been named to several 30 under 30 lists and had given keynote presentations at marketing conferences. But it wasn't until our legal marketing expertise started getting national attention that my brother reached out. His initial contact was formal, almost clinical, an email sent through our company's general inquiry form rather than a personal message to me. He identified himself as Marcus Thompson, partner at Thompson & Associates, and requested information about our legal marketing services. He didn't mention our family relationship, and neither did I when I forwarded his inquiry to our legal marketing team. The irony was perfect. My brother, who'd offered to get me a paralegal position at his firm 3 years earlier, was now potentially hiring the company I'd built from nothing. The brother who'd questioned my intelligence and drive was now asking for my expertise to help grow his practice. I could have assigned his case to one of my team members and maintained my distance. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see how this would play out, wanted to understand what had driven him to reach out to the brother he'd written off as a failure. Our legal marketing team conducted their initial assessment of Thompson & Associates and found exactly what I expected: a successful but traditional firm that was losing ground to more digitally savvy competitors. Marcus and his partners were excellent lawyers, but their online presence was virtually non-existent. Their website looked like it had been designed in 2008, their social media presence was sporadic and unprofessional, and they had no system for converting online inquiries into clients. The proposal we developed for them was comprehensive: a complete digital transformation that would establish them as thought leaders in their practice areas and create multiple channels for attracting new clients. The investment required was substantial, over $50,000 for the initial setup plus ongoing monthly fees for maintenance and optimization. Marcus scheduled a call to discuss the proposal, and for the first time in 3 years, I heard my brother's voice. He was professional, asking detailed questions about our methodology, timeline, and expected results. He didn't acknowledge our relationship and neither did I. We were simply a service provider and a potential client, discussing a business transaction. But I could hear something else in his voice, a subtle desperation that told me his firm was struggling more than he wanted to admit. The legal market had become increasingly competitive, and firms that couldn't adapt to digital marketing were losing clients to those that could. During that call, Marcus mentioned that he'd researched our company extensively and was impressed by our track record with legal clients. He'd spoken to several lawyers we'd worked with, all of whom had given glowing recommendations. He was ready to move forward with our proposal. As we finalized the details, I realized that my brother was about to become a client of the company he'd once told me I'd never be capable of running. The man who'd questioned my intelligence and suggested I work in his mailroom was now seeking my expertise to save his struggling practice. The contracts were signed electronically, payment was processed, and Thompson & Associates became another client in our growing portfolio of legal marketing successes. My team began implementing the digital transformation that would, over the following months, triple their online leads and increase their revenue by over 40%. During this same period, I received another inquiry that caught my attention. Rebecca's company in Chicago was looking for help with a digital marketing campaign for one of their product launches. The request came through their procurement department, but I recognized the company name immediately. Like Marcus, Rebecca had no idea she was potentially hiring her brother's company. The corporate bureaucracy had insulated her from the vendor selection process, but her department would be the ultimate client if we were selected. I decided to personally handle the initial consultation call. The moment Rebecca's voice came through the conference call speakers, I felt a satisfaction I hadn't expected. 5 years after she'd suggested I might find work in her company's mailroom, my sister was unknowingly seeking the expertise of the business I'd built from nothing. The corporate procurement process had selected Digital Solutions Group from dozens of potential vendors, and now Rebecca's department needed our help to launch a new product line that was critical to their quarterly numbers. I didn't reveal my identity during that first call. Instead, I listened as Rebecca outlined their marketing challenges with the same corporate precision I remembered from family dinners. Her company was launching a sustainable packaging solution targeting small to medium-sized businesses, but their internal marketing team lacked the digital expertise to reach decision-makers effectively. The project was substantial, a 6-month campaign with a budget of over $200,000. More importantly, it was exactly the type of challenge my team excelled at, helping a large corporation connect with small business owners through authentic, targeted digital marketing. We won the contract based on our track record, our strategic approach, and our competitive pricing. Rebecca's company became our largest single client, and over the following months, we delivered results that exceeded their expectations. The campaign generated over 1,500 qualified leads and directly contributed to $12 million in new sales for their sustainable packaging division. It was during the campaign's success review meeting that I decided to reveal myself. The call was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday in March 2022. Rebecca was presenting our campaign results to her executive team, praising the innovative strategies and exceptional execution that had made their product launch their most successful in 5 years. She was recommending that they expand their relationship with Digital Solutions Group for additional projects. That's when I unmuted my microphone and spoke. Rebecca, this is Jake Thompson, CEO of Digital Solutions Group. I wanted to personally thank you for the opportunity to work with your team. The silence that followed lasted at least 10 seconds. I could imagine Rebecca processing what she'd just heard, her dropout brother's voice coming through the speakers as the CEO of the company that had just delivered their most successful marketing campaign ever. When she finally spoke, her voice was carefully controlled, professional despite what must have been her shock. Jake, I didn't realize you were involved with this project. I founded the company, I said simply. We've been working together for 6 months now. I hope you're satisfied with the results. The meeting ended awkwardly with Rebecca's executives congratulating me on excellent work while clearly sensing the personal undercurrent they didn't understand. Rebecca herself said very little, promising to follow up separately about future projects. She called me directly 2 hours later. Jake, I don't know what to say. Her voice was different now, softer, lacking the corporate confidence I'd grown accustomed to. How did you build all this? I could have been cruel. I could have reminded her of every dismissive comment, every assumption about my capabilities, every time she'd suggested I wasn't smart enough or driven enough to succeed. Instead, I found myself feeling something I hadn't expected: compassion. I built it the same way anyone builds anything, I said. One day at a time, one client at a time, one small success building on another. The company that just ran our most successful campaign ever, she said slowly. You started this after that Thanksgiving dinner, didn't you? I started it because of that Thanksgiving dinner, I corrected. Sometimes the best motivation comes from people telling you what you can't do. Over the following weeks, both Marcus and Rebecca reached out to re-establish personal contact. The conversations were awkward at first, filled with the kind of careful politeness that comes when family relationships have been damaged by years of misunderstanding and hurt feelings. Marcus was the first to acknowledge what had happened. His law firm's transformation had been dramatic, from struggling practice to one of Detroit's fastest-growing firms in their specialty area. The digital marketing strategies we'd implemented had not only brought in new clients but had established him as a thought leader in his field. He was being quoted in legal publications and invited to speak at bar association events. I was wrong, he told me during a phone call in April. Not just about your business idea but about you. I let my own insecurities and preconceptions blind me to what you were capable of. Rebecca's acknowledgement came differently. She convinced her company's executive team to bring Digital Solutions Group on as their primary digital marketing agency for all small business outreach. The contract was worth over $1 million annually and represented the kind of corporate validation that transformed how other Fortune 500 companies viewed my firm. I keep thinking about that dinner, she told me when we met in person for the first time in 4 years. You said you had the courage to fail, and I thought that was naive. I didn't understand that the courage to fail is really the courage to succeed on your own terms. My parents took longer to reach out, and when they finally did, it was through Marcus rather than directly. They wanted to arrange a family dinner, a chance to reconnect, and I suspected to see for themselves what I'd built. I agreed, but this time the dinner was held at a restaurant I chose, on neutral ground rather than in the family home where I'd been dismissed so completely. The conversation was stilted at first, filled with the kind of surface-level updates that people share when they're not sure how to bridge years of silence. But gradually something shifted. My father asked genuine questions about my business, displaying the kind of interest he'd never shown when I was struggling to get started. My mother admitted that she'd been following my company's success in local media, proud but unsure how to reconcile her pride with her earlier certainty that I'd fail. "We were trying to protect you," Dad said as the evening wound down. "We didn't want you to waste years chasing something that might not work out." "But in trying to protect me from failure," I replied, "you also tried to protect me from success. And those are the same things sometimes." The reconciliation process took months, not hours. Trust that had been broken couldn't be rebuilt with a single conversation or gesture. But slowly, we began to establish new relationships based on who we'd all become rather than who we'd been during that difficult period. Today, 5 years after that Thanksgiving dinner confrontation, Digital Solutions Group employs over 100 people and generates more than $20 million in annual revenue. We've helped thousands of businesses grow, created hundreds of jobs, and established ourselves as a leader in the digital marketing industry. Marcus's law firm remains one of our clients, and their continued success has led to referrals from dozens of other legal practices. Rebecca's company expanded our contract again this year, and she's become one of my most trusted advisors for understanding corporate client needs. But the most important transformation wasn't financial or professional, it was personal. I learned that success isn't about proving other people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about having the courage to pursue your vision even when the people closest to you can't see it. My family's doubt didn't destroy me, it forged me. Their lack of faith became the foundation for an unshakable belief in my own capabilities. And their eventual recognition of my success was less important than my own recognition that I'd become the person I'd always believed I could be. The young man who walked out of that dining room 5 years ago was angry, hurt, and determined to prove a point. The man I am today understands that the best revenge isn't success that diminishes others. It's success that lifts everyone up, including the people who once doubted you. Sometimes the greatest gift your family can give you is their disbelief. It forces you to believe in yourself so completely that nothing can shake that foundation. And when you build your empire on that kind of certainty, it becomes truly unshakable.